Something is watching you right now. Not a monster, not a shadow. Something worse, something that looks almost exactly like you. And the most disturbing part? Scientists believe your ancestors were actively hunted by something that could wear a human face. Whatever it was, it either went extinct, or it learned to look perfectly like us. By the end of this video, you'll know what that thing was. And you'll understand why. Buried somewhere deep in your biology, you've always known it's still out there. You felt it before. You walk past a wax figure in a museum and your whole body tightens. You watch a hyper-realistic video game cutscene and something in your gut recoils. You look at a humanoid robot and feel your skin crawl before your brain can even explain why. That reaction has a name, and it might be the oldest survival warning your species has ever inherited. In 1970, a Japanese robotics professor named Masahiro Mori discovered something that quietly changed the way we understand the human brain. He noticed that as artificial things become more human-like, puppets, dolls, early CGI, our empathy toward them rises steadily. We feel warmth, connection, recognition. But then, right before they cross the finish line into perfect realism, our empathy doesn't just plateau. It collapses, crashing into something far darker. Revulsion, dread, the deep, wordless impulse to step back. He called it the Uncanny Valley. Most people assume this is a modern glitch, a side effect of AI faces and Hollywood visual effects. But evolutionary psychologists think this response is ancient, millions of years old. They believe it was hardwired into your DNA on purpose. And the reason why is far more disturbing than you've been told. So here's the question that should already be itching at the back of your mind. Why would evolution wire an entire species to fear something that looks almost human? The first answer starts with death. Thousands of years ago, before antibiotics, before germ theory, before anyone alive understood what a virus was, infectious disease was the single greatest killer in human history. Not predators, not starvation, plague. And here is the brutal reality. A person dying from a severe infection didn't look like a monster. They looked almost exactly like everyone else. But their skin sat slightly wrong. Their gait was fractionally off. Their expressions didn't track the way a healthy face should. Your brain, processing thousands of microsignals per second, would catch those glitches before your conscious mind registered a single thought and instantly trigger a disgust response. Asterisk, step back. Don't touch. Don't breathe near them. Asterisk. This is the pathogen avoidance hypothesis. The ancestors who felt that revulsion most intensely, they survived. The ones who ignored it got sick. Their genes died with them. That gut-wrenching discomfort you feel when something looks almost human isn't irrational. It's inherited trauma from every epidemic your bloodline ever outlasted. But disease doesn't explain everything, because the second theory reaches even further back, into a moment of history most people don't realize actually happened. 40,000 years ago, Homo sapiens were not the only human-like beings walking this earth. We shared continents with Neanderthals, with Denisovans, and with at least two other hominin species whose names scientists haven't even finalized yet. These weren't primitive ape men shambling through the dark. Neanderthals had brains larger than ours. They crafted tools. They buried their dead with ritual. They made jewelry. They may have created art. They looked almost exactly like us. And they were our direct competition for the same food, the same shelter, the same fertile land, the same odds of survival through winter. Researchers argue that the Uncanny Valley sharpened here as a threat detection system forged in that ancient competition. When a figure appeared on the ridge that was close enough to human to be dangerous, but different enough to be a rival, your ancestors' brains needed to fire an alarm with zero hesitation. Trust the wrong, almost human, and you might share your food supply with a competitor. You might drop your guard at the wrong moment. You might not see spring. The clans who felt that instinctive distrust most acutely, they protected their resources. They survived. They became us. But both of those theories assumed the threat was another humanoid species. What if it wasn't? This is the third theory, and it's the one that certain researchers won't stop thinking about. Consider how nature's most successful predators actually hunt. Spiders don't chase. Crocodiles sink below the surface and go still. Anglerfish dangle a lure. The most effective killers on this planet don't pursue their prey, they attract it. Some evolutionary theorists believe that somewhere in humanity's deep past, there was a predator that hunted by mimicking us. Not a shapeshifter from mythology. A real biological organism that evolved to approximate human appearance just closely enough to trigger our most dangerous instinct. The social impulse to approach something that looks like one of us. And then close the gap. And then attack. This sounds like horror fiction until you look at the animal kingdom. The mimic octopus impersonates venomous lionfish in real time. The zone-tailed hawk soars in the silhouette of vultures to approach prey without triggering alarm. Deadleaf mantises don't just resemble plant matter, they become it, down to the texture of veins on a dried leaf. Visual mimicry isn't rare. It is one of evolution's most reliable weapons. It appears independently across thousands of species on every continent. Because it works. The third theory proposes this. Our hypersensitive, almost human detection system, the Uncanny Valley, evolved not to avoid disease and not just to distrust rival hominins, but because something was actively hunting our ancestors while wearing a human disguise. And the humans who developed the sharpest instinct for catching those subtle tells, the wrong blink, the hollow eyes, the expression that arrives half a second too late, they survived. They bred. They passed that gift down, generation after generation, until it became us. So here is the question that should be sitting heavy in your chest right now. Whatever that predator was, we don't have confirmed fossil evidence. We don't have a name. Some researchers believe we became so lethally good at detecting it that we hunted it to extinction through sheer collective vigilance, before we even had the tools to document what we were doing. But there's another possibility. What if it didn't go extinct? What if the selection pressure we created forced it to evolve further, faster? What if, instead of disappearing, it kept crossing the valley, kept refining the disguise, until it looked exactly like us? You felt the uncanny valley, that specific, wordless wrongness when something almost human enters your field of vision. Your brain, running millions of years of compressed survival data, fires a warning before you can name it. Most of the time, it's a bad render. A wax figure. A robot with slightly mismatched eye movements. But evolution doesn't hardwire billion-year-old alarm systems into a species for no reason. Whatever first triggered it, it was real. And your ancestors were terrified of it long before you had the language to ask why.